Everyone has surely heard of the Euphrates, the fabled river of the Bible. Today, the Euphrates is drying up in many places, and scientists have made a shocking discovery that could dramatically change all of our lives. Join us today on a journey to the river that is said to have once watered the Garden of Eden, which is also directly associated with the end of the world. Is the Euphrates the river of destiny for mankind? Most of us today associate the names Euphrates and Tigris with religious events and even the historical Mesopotamia. These regions around these two rivers played a central role in the development of Western or Near Eastern civilizations and, of course, in the development of the great world religions. Of course, scientists have long since ceased to assume that man suddenly came into being in the Garden of Eden. But the garden could have been the symbol of a once very fertile landscape which provided mankind with everything they needed and allowed great steps of development. Today, the land is drying up, and not only scientists are very worried. Religious people in particular view the processes with skepticism, because the Euphrates is not only said to be the cradle of mankind, the river of destiny could herald the apocalypse and thus the downfall of the world. The Euphrates in facts and figures. Over a distance of about 2,800 kilometers, the Euphrates meanders through three important countries of the Middle East and connects them in a fateful way. Very close to Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey, the Euphrates rises from the confluence of the smaller Murat and Karasu headwaters. Depending on the season, these springs send a flow of 300 to 800 cubic meters of water per second through the Middle East. At times, during the spring snowmelt, the flow can exceed 1,000 cubic meters per second. Already in Turkey, the flow assumes enormous proportions, a fact that the Turkish nation takes advantage of by damming the water and using it to generate energy. Several dams and hydroelectric power plants have been built along the Euphrates River to harness water for irrigation and power generation. The largest such structure is the Ataturk Dam in Turkey. Since Turkey controls the upper reaches of the river, it sits at the water tap, so to speak, for the entire Mesopotamia. And this is where experts see an earth-shattering problem. The Euphrates is an important source of water for three nations, among which severe tensions have been the order of the day for centuries. Already since the construction of the first dams in Turkey, it came to enormous problems with Syria and Iraq. These conflicts are now further aggravated by the changes in the unstoppable climate change. What once brought wealth and energy to mankind could develop into a major catastrophe in the not-so-distant future, the extent of which even experts have so far found difficult to estimate. Bible. The Euphrates brings the apocalypse. It is not only eco-researchers and conservationists who view the developments in the Middle East with great concern. Among religious people in particular, unease is spreading. The reason for this is a scripture known to Christians as the Revelation of John and the last book of the New Testament. The central event of the scripture is the apocalypse, which at first means nothing else than unveiling or revelation. In common usage, the term apocalypse is often associated with a catastrophe or a doomsday scenario. And this is apparently what the Bible means, because the passages actually leave no doubt that the revolution will bring great suffering and destruction among people, and the starting point is supposed to be the Euphrates River. Revelation 9:13 through 16 states, "And the sixth angel sounded with his trumpet, and I heard a voice out of the four horns of the golden altar which is before God, and it said unto the sixth angel which had the trumpet, Loose the four angels which are bound at the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for the hour, and for the day, and for the month, and for the year, to kill the third part of men. And the number of army that rode was many thousands times 1,000. I heard their number." Bible connoisseurs know that the bound angels mentioned in the passage refer to demons. These demons are generally associated with lower energies such as hatred, envy, discord, and war among people. Later, in Revelation 16:12, the Euphrates River is mentioned again. "And the sixth angel poured out his bowl upon the great river Euphrates, and the waters thereof dried up, that the way might be prepared for the kings from the rising of the sun." This passage indicates that the Euphrates River dried up to clear the way for the kings of the east, This is believed to be part of the end-time events and related to the struggle of good and evil. The kings of the rising of the sun would have to be rulers from the eastern regions of this world, mutastis mustandis. Now you may ask how drought in globally rather insignificant countries should bring the downfall of the whole world. Well, it's quite simple, and you will be astonished when we show you more details. Controversy over water divides the world. Scientists and experts have long been certain that the next great wars will no longer be fought over land, oil, or gold. Water will be the next bone of contention for mankind. Turkey reserves the right to determine the amount of water in the Euphrates River, even though water agreements with neighboring countries regulate certain amounts that must flow to Syria and Iraq. The Turks do not always abide by them. Along the Euphrates, many people depend on the river's supply. In particular, the direct residents and farmers are urgently waiting for the water, which is failing more and more often. The Euphrates is drying up, as announced in the Bible, and that worries the people. The already very poor people in Syria are already struggling with the drought. In the coming years, experts fear, these problems will increase. Is Turkey's dispute with Syria escalating? Iraq can consider itself lucky at the moment. With the Tigers, this nation has a second life-giving river. In Syria, the situation is different. The country depends on the Euphrates and its water. If the water fails to arrive, Turkey officials blame climate change and changes in source quantities. In Syria, those in power suspect manipulation and repression by the Turks. Since the Arab Spring, which was brutally put down in Syria, millions of Syrians fled to neighboring Lebanon and Turkey. In Syria, unfortunately, the people's uprisings only achieved a regrettable aggravation of their situation. The government cracked down even harder. People were silenced with poison gas, and opponents of the regime are bitterly fought until the present time. Entire ethnic groups are said to have been wiped out, and those in power are not allowing international aid and mediation. Turkey stands alone with the refugee problem. Syria is viewed critically by the world community of nations. The rulers have only a few allies in this world, and the largest supporter of Syria is Russia for many years. There, they do not care about Syrian human rights violations, but have other geopolitical interests in mind. Russia and Turkey are traditionally less friendly to each other. The reason for this are very old conflicts over some regions at the Black Sea, lost wars of the past, and opposite position in the Syrian conflict. Russia supports the regime of President Bashar al-Assad, while Turkey backs Syrian opposition leaders. If a dispute over water breaks out in these countries, other conflicts could spread like wildfire. The past has already shown several times that small events are enough to cause the barrel of geopolitical tensions to overflow. According to experts, geopolitical tensions have now already reached a breaking point, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine has shown that power interests in Europe and neighboring regions of Asia are far from balanced. Shocking discovery by scientists. On its long journey through the Middle East, the Euphrates River forms unique natural reserves and wild gorges. Recently, claims have been made that strange voices are increasingly heard from the depths of the gorges. Other witnesses report sounds that resemble murmurs. Not only for Christians are these signs that the demons of the Euphrates are awakening. Believers in Islam also know the apocalypse, on Qiyamah or Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of resurrection. Allah will resurrect the entire creation and subject the world to a final judgment. Writings of Islam also report that the Euphrates River will play a significant role in the end-time events. According to Hadith tradition, in the last days, the River of Destiny will release a treasure of gold that will be disputed. Islam also knows of a Redeemer figure, but it's not expected to be in the form of Christ. The Jews also know of the Last Judgment. The Tanakh, however, omits details, and the Euphrates River is not mentioned in connection with the apocalypse in the writings of the Third Great World Religion. So the strange sounds coming from the river are equally frightening to Christians and Muslims. Researchers who have taken up the phenomenon believe that the discoveries are rationally explainable phenomenon triggered by geological changes and the ongoing drought. Of course, it's not at all the nature of natural science to associate events such as strange noises coming from a rock formation with Bible prophecies or figurative threats of a last judgment. Nevertheless, scientists and world organizations are also concerned and keeping an eye on what is happening in the Middle East. Another worrisome sign. Up to this point, one could still speak of coincidences and wild speculation. But look at this some more. In the book of Ezekiel, God warns the prophet of the same name that a global catastrophe will be imminent once the Dead Sea comes to life. The Dead Sea, considered the saltiest sea on the planet. For a long time, researchers thought that no life could thrive in these waters, not even bacteria or single-celled organisms were found there. But then, something happened that no one expected. In 2016, a group of researchers completely unexpectedly found small freshwater springs within the lake, and fish, as well as some simple plant species, thrive in that environment. So, the Dead Sea has come to life, fulfilling a second bad omen for a worldwide change that many are calling the end of the world. What do you think is really going on? Are these coincidences, or are the religious prophecies coming true?